Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Many people go to a psychic medium for answers. They want to know sometimes what happened. Why did their loved one pass? What went on? How do they feel along this whole situation? We're going to talk with somebody today who has those answers for many. And I have to say this before we do anything, and I've said it before. When we first met, she gave me some answers. She connected me with my aunt. Nobody's ever done that. I've talked to other psychics. She's the real deal. Shannon Dee Sees Things is with us today. Her cousin Jen joins us as well. Ladies, welcome. How you guys doing?
We're great. Really good. Awesome week. Earthquake shook it up.
Yeah. We got the earthquake. We got the for the Northeast. We got the eclipse. We've got Mercury retrograde in full effect right now. It's been very interesting, to say the least. And before we even get deep into talking about the answers that you provide in terms of somebody's passing, when these things happen, like earthquakes and eclipses, full moons, retrogrades, and all of that, does that change your energy and change what happens when you do readings?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. Yeah. This week's readings, last week and this week, were just off the hook. I mean, I usually I'll get names and stuff, but it a lot of times depends on the energy of the participant with me. But this week, I don't think it mattered. They could have been a rock sitting across from me, and I was getting some incredible readings this week. So it was really great this week.
A lot of things they didn't know about, and they already came back and said, "Oh my gosh, you were right."
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. We got pictures of spoons and all kinds of crazy things.
Injuries we didn't know about.
Yeah. The foot injury, the knee injury. Yeah, it was crazy.
I truly feel that this has been a wonky week. I don't know. I'm feeling that, factor out the eclipse and, the earthquake, New Jersey. Did you guys feel it in Pennsylvania?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Not as much as you, but definitely felt it.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't like, too unsettling. However, just the retrograde, I'm a big believer in that, and I'm seeing things. And it's not like I read into it or I want to say, well, that's because of the retrograde. Things have been happening around, friends, just stuff. Like, why is it all happening now in this 3-week period? It could have happened before, it could have happened after. Anyway, in terms of what you see, what you feel when somebody's getting a reading and you're bringing information from a loved one, many times, Shannon, they're asking about the cause of death. What happened? Tell us about that.
A lot of times I am told, especially in cases of whether it was accident, murder, suicide, I know what it is before they even put the question to me, especially if it's a delicate question. So I will, we'll say like, hey, it was your son. It was your brother. I'll look at them and I'll say, this is your brother? And they'll say yes. And in the case of one lady, she happened to call me and she was thinking about booking. And I said, you want to know whether this was an accidental overdose or whether this was intentional? And she was shocked and she was like, yes. And she said, what can you tell me? And I said, first of all, who the family thinks gave him the drugs when he got out of rehab is not who gave him the drugs. It was not his best friend. And I believe at the time I gave her the name of his friend. And you could just hear her relief. And I said, he was home alone. Your mom wasn't there. And she's like, correct. And I said, he was in your mom's home. And I said, he was found passed in front of the refrigerator and the door was open. And she said, we don't understand why. And I said, because when he took the medication, I said it was laced with fentanyl, which turned out to be true. I said he felt woozy and he thought that it was like his blood pressure or something. I said he went to get the orange juice. I said he had the right door open. The orange juice was on the second shelf down on the right. And that's what he went to get. And it was totally true. That was the door that was open. And she said he loved orange juice. And that's where they found him in front of the refrigerator door. And it turned out that the person who gave it to him was someone that he had just met in rehab.
Wow. Was some of that validated later? Is
Absolutely.
there, yeah.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah.
Hmm. It's almost one of those things where you don't want to hear that as the person that's receiving the reading, but you do want to hear it.
hmm
That makes sense.
It usually gives them a lot of comfort. Um,
Yeah.
they really want to know when when somebody's murdered, especially when it's a parent of a child. I have found that they want to know as much as possible. It's almost as if they want to experience what their child experienced because they feel like they should have been there. And it's almost self-torturing, which is so painful. But I ask, like, do you want to know? What information do you want to know? And usually I get a signal from the other side, and they'll tell me as much as they feel the other person should know. Um, I have a lady named Deb who's just a dear soul and has become a wonderful friend as well as a client. And her daughter was murdered. And I was able to verify with her that the two people that were her daughter's friends had basically robbed her, made it look like a robbery, and had taken various items from her and made it look like a robbery and left her in an alley. Um, and how painful it was, but Deb really had a need to verify it. Um, and it was painful, but she needed to know. And I think in a weird way, it gave her some solace to feel like she was there with her.
Hmm. I never thought of it that way. That's an interesting viewpoint where you feel like you were, I mean, you feel like you're there because you're seeing it, but as the loved one asking the questions and trying to get understanding, you feel like you're there. You have a picture of what actually happened and a better understanding. I know you get this question a lot. People ask you, what did they feel? Were they at peace? Were they happy? Was it very traumatic? Did they know? Um, how do you answer those? What do you feel? I would love to look at that.
Um, in some cases, like that one reading, I think we brought this up the other week, where someone was stabbed. I could feel the the pressure in my stomach when someone was stabbed, but there was it was so that I understood what had happened to them. But they always come back and tell me that there's like an immediate disconnect with their pain receptors, that it was so quick that they always say it doesn't matter to them because that's not what they choose to remember. Um, they always seem to be thinking in those moments about their family and about their life, that sometimes, like what Jen has said, they don't even remember their passing. They choose to remember their life. But a lot of times I'll experience brief moments of their pain, whether however they passed, for the purpose that I understand and can relay how they passed for validation purposes. Um, but I think that their pain receptors kind of cut off in those moments, that they might feel it for a brief second, but then I think that they kind of cut off, and once they cross, they don't have those, like if they think about it, they're not feeling that pain anymore.
Is that typical for most people?
I think so. In my experience, that's the way it's been.
What about if it's an expected passing? Somebody, let's say, is in a hospital, they're in hospice. Um, they're conscious to a point, and then maybe not, whatever the case may be. Does it still kind of look the same way?
They always hear you. I've had, how many times do you think, Jen, where somebody has said they heard what they,
Oh yeah, you'll tell them what they whispered, in their ear and stuff like that.
yeah, and they never say that they were in pain. They always, it's always, the message is always what they said, especially,
Remember my friend that his sister
Yeah.
knew, yeah, she
yeah,
heard him, and it was such a relief for him that she could hear
yeah,
what he said before she passed.
yeah, because it was very specific. It wasn't like a generic, I love you. It was a very
Right.
specific thing. And it's not, in my recollection, the things that are whispered, I can't remember them ever being the same thing. It's always something a little bit different. And whether they had held their right hand or their left hand, or they kissed their forehead, their cheek, they had their hand on their shoulder, on their hip, it's always something a little bit different that validates to them that they really did know that they were there. And I do believe, after years of floor nursing, I do believe that they can hear you. I always talk to my vent patients and to my hospice patients.
I've heard that before too from others that they can hear you. They may not look that way, but they can. Got to ask the other question, and I'm sure you get this one too. What's it like on the other side? I don't think we've ever talked about that. What does somebody say? Is it a happy place wherever, whatever religion you subscribe to, heaven, whatever. When somebody passes and they've moved on to the next phase, what's it like? What do you hear?
I think the best example of that is Marion Babbitt. If there was ever one soul, if I lost this ability and could only talk to one soul, it would be Marion Babbitt. She's the most exciting soul I've ever had. I was reading a girl named Sarah, and Marion was like, "Hello, I'm here," and she was so exciting. And when I was coloring one night, just downloading my brain, all of a sudden I was doing a cake, and the cake started to change colors, and I realized it was for a baby. And I started writing a message on the other side, and I realized it was from Marion. And she started writing, "Hello, I'm here," and crossed out the and said, "We're here." And I wrote above it, "Did your GF die?" Meaning your grandfather. And I ended up realizing that Sarah's grandfather must have died, Marion's husband. And so I wrote out a message. I sent a picture of it and texted it to Sarah, and here her grandfather had passed. And so that morning she texted me and said, yes, he did pass. And right away her grandfather came. And so I could see him right away. And I said, he's in golfing clothes, but he's sitting on a bench and he's just looking at me like forlorn, like, oh. And I was like, what are you doing sitting on a bench? And he's like, it's Marion, she's shopping for clothes. And I was like, Sarah, are you pregnant? And I had told her she would be pregnant before August. And here she did get pregnant. And just like I had told her. And so she was pregnant. And I said, Marion's shopping for clothes for your baby. And she's like, I am pregnant. And I could see all the shops were like as if you were in Vegas, and they were all lined. Everything was, instead of like silver plated, everything was like gold plated. And I was like, is this your heaven? And he's like, no. And he looked like he was like sitting on the bench waiting for his wife. And I was like, well, what's your heaven look like? And all of a sudden the scene changed, and you could just see rolling hills with golf tees. And he said, as soon as I get my roller skates on, that's where I'm headed. But he had just passed. And he said, I got to get used to this place first.
So it'll be different for everybody.
Yep.
Huh.
So
I'll be on a beach then.
It's
yeah.
funny. You look at it that way. What would your heaven be? That interesting question.
Yeah.
if you were to pass and you could visualize what it would be, I think for me it would be Best Buy, $500 in my pocket.
Best Buy.
That would be
You
my
could
heaven.
do better than that.
No, I'm just saying it would be, I don't play golf. So that does, means nothing to me. Or just, peaceful Caribbean beach.
Yeah.
And just, reflecting. That could be fine. But it makes you think for a second what your quote unquote heaven would be. That's a Facebook post there. Jen, I want to ask you. You guys are related as cousins, and you've walked this journey with Shannon along the way. When she is reading somebody and there are definite connections and there's validation, and as always, she's on her game, and it's just, things are firing. Are you quietly inside saying, yeah, like high-fiving yourself and her, like, yeah?
Steve, the first time she talked to you, you couldn't see us. I'm in the background going, yes, nailed it. Are you kidding me? Every time I'm like, nailed it, nailed it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very exciting because I know she can do it, but it's still a shock to me every time. Some of the messages she gets are so specific.
Yeah.
And the way she can make it up.
There's not. I mean, I validated it. It was the first time. We didn't even know it. We didn't even see each other.
I know.
And in my mind, it's, bing, ringing the bell, bing, on to the next one. Bing. And again, I'll share. Last time we talked, I divulged to the both of you and everybody else that I've never done this. I was testing her. I threw a question. It's like in my mind, I'm like, yeah, all right, you bring that. Let's go. And she did. And she did. And I will be honest too. I've talked to other psychics who don't give up anything. Not that a reading is expected, but just talk about the philosophy behind, but don't bring the evidence. That's whatever. I want to share with you. I mentioned my mom before, and I did a podcast with somebody, a life coach, yesterday, and she said that we have. I don't know what it is, but she's like, we have synchronicities. I don't know. I just feel like some kind of connection to you, meaning me. And I'm like, I don't know, whatever. And it turns out that her birthday was Friday, and that would have been my mom's birthday. So it was almost weird how it started going down that road. And that brings me to the question, when somebody does cross over, they're here, aren't they? Even though they're there, wherever there is, whatever you want to believe there is, but they're still here. They're still around us. Are they watching us? I choose to believe they are. What do you guys think?
I think in special moments, it's not like, if you're in the shower, it's not creepy like that. Like they're not watching you constantly, but they
always
definitely
wondered about that, and I let that go.
No, I don't think it's all the time. I think it's
and other times too. Let's be honest, and other times too. Just
yes, exactly. We won't get into that, but
right. Yeah,
I think when you really need them, they come for you, or they want to share in your special moment, like a wedding or a birth. But I don't, I think they have other people to visit as well. My mom's not always here. She may want to visit my dad or, my nephew. So
right. Is it reasonable to think that, when you make the call in your mind, it's almost like I'm calling you, okay, pick up.
Yeah, for sure.
Then they appear.
Yes.
In some way, whatever, a sign. We've talked about signs before that you need to be open to them. You're not going to see them unless you're open and you clear the clutter of life out of the way to receive them. But I believe if you ask, and I don't ask enough of my relatives who have passed. There's some that it's like, I don't think they're going to communicate. That's bad. That's my bad. That's on me. I should.
You didn't think Aunt B was watching you, right? You didn't think Aunt B was coming through.
No.
Yeah.
No, not at all.
No, she's inundating you.
She won't go away. Yeah.
She makes it every podcast.
Yeah. And you know what? To that point, I don't vibe her. I don't know why. I think she was a very strong-willed woman. It's almost if I don't want to bother her.
Yeah.
But she always said, "You're my favorite." When I was a kid, she would always say that. But yeah, I think if we ask, we have a couple of minutes left. Most recent reading or readings, Shannon, that you could share with us. Just, I'm going in real time here. Anything pop in your head that, was all right? We have a couple of Shannon bells ring.
Boy, I had a couple this week. I had a lady that I read, and her dad came through, her mom and her dad, and I kept hearing this knocking sounds. It was like this clunk, clunk, clunk. And I said to her, "Does your car make a strange noise?" And she's like, "Yes, it always has." And I said, "You're going to get rid of that car, and you're going to get another car by September." And I said, "What is going on with your car that you have not gotten rid of it?" And she said, "Oh, well, it's made it since we got it. The dealer said that we just have to, it's something with the oil." I said, and I drew, and here what I drew on my pad without realizing it was a piston. And she said, "Yeah, it's the pistons." She said that the dealer told her she just has to like rev the engine and like drive faster to blow out the oil. And I'm like, ugh. I'm like, "No, you need to get rid of this car. Your dad is like, that car is like a disaster waiting to happen before the piston drives itself through the side of your engine." And so at the same time, I said, "Your husband's foot, his right foot, has been bothering him. Your mom said," and she gave him specific things to do. And she goes, I don't know. He hasn't mentioned it." And sure enough, he went home. She went home and asked, and we got a message from to Jen last night. His right foot has been bothering him the last few days. He just hadn't said anything. And I said something about her grandmother, and I said there was a slotted spoon. And I said, "I don't know what it is about the spoon, but there's something, it's a wooden spoon, but I see it as like some kind of slotted spoon." And she sent us the picture, and it's a wooden spoon, but she put it across the pot so it wouldn't boil over, but she got busy and it burned and burned a slot into the side of this spoon. And after that, they called it their slotted spoon.
Wow.
And so she sent a picture of this spoon, and I said, "Ask your brother about it versus a sister or someone else." Usually I know which person to ask, and her brother sent her the picture, and it's a spoon that has a slot on it. So usually they'll tell us who to ask. And she was just as surprised and excited as could be when she sent this.
Wow.
We usually get very, very interesting, surprising readings from people when you're able to say that, because she didn't remember until she saw the picture.
Talk about specific.
Yes.
That's you can't make that up.
Nothing you can make up.
Yeah.
You should have seen the spoon. I've never seen anything like it. There's no way you could have known that.
And invalidated. And nobody's going to say yes to any of that unless there's a reason. I'm not going to yes you. I love you, but I'm not going to yes you. It's going to be, it's got to be legit. Shannon, how do we connect with you? Or should I ask Jen? It looks like Jen takes care of a lot of that.
Yeah, don't trust me with the schedule.
That's all right. You can find us on Facebook or Instagram under Shannon Dee Sees Things, or you can text or call me at 215-680-7693 for an appointment.
Super cool. Do you guys live near each other?
Yeah, 10 minutes. 10 minutes away.
10 minutes. Wow. I have some close friends. I've known them for years. They're known as the Psychic Sisters here. And it's almost kind of the same situation where they're there for each other. And I compare it, even though Jen, you don't say you're a psychic. I know you're intuitive, but we'll leave that go. That there's like this powerful energy from both of you. One is great, but it's not like 1 + 1 = 2. It's like 1 + 1 = 5. In terms of what I'm feeling over here. And I think other people feel that too. And it's cool. It's like, it's just it's a warm and fuzzy vibe, especially that you're connected as relatives. Always great talking with you both. Love it. I really do.
You too.
You too.
Yeah. And soon, let's get some people on here. instantfeedbacksteve@gmail.com. Reach out if you want to do a reading. I didn't even check this out. I didn't even check this out with them. I didn't ask them. I just said that. Let's see.
No, let's do some reading.
No, we have to, for sure.
Yeah, that would be very cool. All right. Have a
There's
great
lady
weekend.
named Rosa that needs to be read. I've been feeling her for a while.
Rosa. Is there a Rosa?
I think there's a lady named Rosa, or her grandmother's named Rosa. She lives in an apartment. She needs to be read as her grandmother wants to connect with her.
Where are you getting that from?
Her grandmother
Is it from his studio?
No, she's in an apartment in New York. Her grandmother's been wanting to be read for a while.
We have to go. We're out of time. This is just a random thing that's coming up.
Yeah, it just pops in her head.
Sorry. Been in my head for a while, Steve.
I think my ex's grandmother or something was Rosa too. I don't know.
All right, find out, Steve. You got a week.
Too much for me to process. All right. Have a good weekend. We'll talk soon, okay?
All right,
bye.
We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.